everybody. Welcome to Conder Conversations. I got a real special guest here, Chad Michael, the practitioner. Chad's been in the industry for quite some time. You started as an just a regular adjuster?
Contractor.
Contractor?
Yeah, it's a sales rep for a contractor.
Oh, wow.
Roofing sales is where I first started out in this industry.
And then
over 25 years.
Did you kind of just grow into a passion with the estimating side?
I did, yeah. It gravitated towards that for sure. Like I found out that, I didn't know anything about roofing, construction, any of that. The only kind of a background that I had when I got into roofing was I had a landscaping company when I was a kid, my early 20s. So, a deck maybe would be the farthest I would ever have gone with construction, like a paver patio or retaining wall, something like that. But other than that, I didn't know anything about any type of construction, especially not roofing. And this was before Eagle View. So Eagle View.
So you started when you had a hand measure.
Yeah. So for people that don't know about Eagle View, it's aerial measurements. We order these measurement reports, and within a couple minutes, hours, we have all the measurements of the roof all handed to us. But then we had to measure all angles of the roof, the up and the over, and the perimeter, and
we have to do it here and there, but not like you used to.
Yeah, and we had to do that math. And I was not a good student at all, especially not in math, So I wish my math teachers could have seen that. But you had to do all the calculations. And so I struggled big time with that, But I didn't know anything about, there was a hailstorm in my hometown of Kettering, Ohio, near Dayton. And I had no idea that there was even a hailstorm. And furthermore, I didn't know that hail could do that, to a roof. So it was everything about it was brand new to me. But I struggled so much with the measuring and the estimating portion of it. And I didn't understand why, when you looked at a State Farm estimate, it was different than an Allstate estimate. And I didn't understand. And by the way, I looked at a State Farm estimate that was different from a State Farm estimate, how it was priced, the unit price. So I didn't know about Xactimate, which is the pricing software that most insurance companies use. I didn't know about any of that. I didn't know that there was a supplemental process. Like there was a process where you could go back to the insurance company to tell them that there are things missing and to ask them for more money and to get them to actually review it. So I didn't even know that, but I struggled a lot through that. And to be honest, got into different things. I didn't stay with roofing at first, because I struggled with it. But then there were several hurricanes that hit Florida in 2004, where I went down to Florida, and these 4 hurricanes had struck within a month of each other. And so the central part of the state was touched by all 4 hurricanes. And so there were just jobs everywhere, and I had a friend that was down there doing roofing and told me about it, and I went down there, and that was sort of my real university, if you will.
Throw you to the wolves?
Yeah, it's like sink or swim. It was no longer just roofing. It was everything, everything in the building, everything in the home destroyed, down to the studs, a lot of times because everything had caved, the ceilings had caved in, and it rained inside these, buildings, and screen enclosures and all the stuff on the outside as well. So that was a big learning experience there, and I've never looked back. I've never gotten out. I've been pretty much addicted to it, addicted to, you say passion, and that's really what it is. I found over time that all of the aspects of construction, out of everything there is, the process of that challenge of getting the insurance company to approve what they're supposed to approve.
Right.
That part for me, and seeing so many jobs go from this amount and have a major increase because of my involvement, that is addicting, And so I've stayed with that. I eventually started my own company and did not like that as much. I was a contractor for over 10 years, and I loved it, but I had a passion for it, but I wasn't happy. And I just came to figure out over time it was because I didn't like being the guy who wears all the hats, right? The buck stops here, the one in charge of everything. I didn't like the the production of it, all the headaches that comes
Yeah,
with
it's
that.
a little bit stressful.
It's stressful. I weighed 100 pounds heavier than I am right now.
Really?
Like I had pictures of me where I was big, and I had high blood pressure. I was not, high anxiety.
Yeah.
I was not happy, and so I eventually found a way to get out of that, but stay on the insurance side. And I was able to sell my company, and then I started a supplement company. So, and it started as a estimate writing company, but I wrote Xactimate estimates for contractors. And now there are companies like that everywhere, but there wasn't really anybody doing that. So I had a site where people uploaded their information, and it was in high demand, so I wrote thousands of estimates across the country.
How'd you do that? How'd you?
Well, I eventually hired, estimate writers to help me, and they were former adjusters themselves, and I had to kind of, undo some of the brainwashing that they had, and kind of teach them my ways of doing things. But I designed a website, like a portal where people could upload all their information, and that back then there wasn't a lot of technology like that, so it was pretty difficult to do. But I did that. I got a portal where people could upload their information, photos, measurements, job scopes, insurance adjuster estimates, and then we would write an estimate and send it back to them virtually. So it was, we were writing a lot of estimates across the country, even in Canada. We were writing estimates in French in Quebec because they're French-speaking, region there.
Oh yeah,
and so that was a very, huge learning opportunity for me, learning experience. I got to see thousands of insurance adjuster estimates, and one thing I noticed is that I never did see one, including in my career as a contractor, that wasn't short. I never saw an insurance adjuster estimate that wasn't short.
Yeah.
And that's really because on insurance adjuster estimates, there are line items, right? And next to every line item is a dollar amount. If they're missing line items, it's missing dollars, And so I've seen, there's a number of reasons why that is, but I've noticed that's one thing in common on all insurance adjuster estimates. And that's really why I have a career.
How many years have you been doing this, like the actual teaching part?
The teaching part, I started in 2010, end of 2010 into 2011. So about, 15 years.
What about like the, the seminars or the training?
I'm on my 7th year of that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So
I didn't realize that.
I have an all-day training master. We call it the Insurance Restoration Master Class. And it is amazing that I'm still doing that 7 years later. The year of COVID, I didn't do any events that year. So full disclaimer there. But so really 6 years. But
You didn't go virtual with that?
I did some, but I didn't do too well with that, honestly. So I took a lot of time traveling. I went and drove up the coast of California up to.
That's a goal of mine.
Oh man, I went up to Oregon and Washington and went over to Montana. Did a lot of that stuff.
That's awesome.
I did do a couple deals, during COVID, but not a ton. I mostly took the time off.
I'm surprised because it seemed like the construction industry went bananas then.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I did. Let's see. I did do a training event for a company in Connecticut that year. And did mostly, I did do virtual, but it was mostly like one-on-one consulting with contractors and over the phone, Zoom type stuff, but no training events.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, we went to your class last year in Chicago, got a ton of value out of it. So I'm happy you're doing it.
It's awesome. I was wondering about when that was. You were telling me that. Because we just did one in Chicago.
I believe it was like in a summertime.
Was it in 25 or was it in 24?
I bet you I could search my pictures real quick and tell. It was last year.
It was probably 24, I think, but I'm not quite sure. But yeah, I know we've done Chicago. It's pretty much a staple for us. I've done it every year since I started, and it always seems to be the biggest one. There it is. Yeah, that was last year. Yeah. I'm thinking that was last year for sure.
May 10th.
May 10th. Was there like 200 people there?
It was a lot. Yeah, it was a lot.
Had
You brought in
there.
I can't remember his name. Another guy kind of wears like a hat. as a special guest.
Was it? Matt Mulholland.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's good.
Yeah, I like him a lot. That's right. That's the only time I've ever done that.
Oh,
So that was
really?
a special event you were at for sure.
Yeah.
That's the only time I've ever had anybody else come in and do
I was
any
gonna
other kind
ask
of
you that,
content.
yeah.
So that was definitely a special event. That I think we had 250 there that day.
It was a lot.
That was a big one. Yeah.
And one thing I do remember is you took pride in making sure we had good food.
Good. Yeah, I always do, man.
Yeah.
I hate how a lot of these industry events, you go to them and they have like a Jimmy John's sandwich
Yeah.
and chips,
Oh,
which
yeah.
I like Jimmy John's, no offense there, but just give us a little something more. We're contractors, right? Like,
And we pay good money. to
yeah,
be where you're,
absolutely. Yeah, make an experience out of it. Yes.
On this event you're doing, which this will air after your event, but you're doing an event November 11th and 12th.
Yeah, so that's a little bit differently. So I do 1 day and 2 day events. So the 2 day we call it an intensity boot camp, and that's a little more detailed, a little more
Okay.
time, and it's
Yeah.
a smaller group. So we only allow up to 30 people
Oh,
to
really?
attend that. Yeah, so it gives the people that are there a lot more opportunity to get their questions answered. They can ask whatever they want over that 2 day period. We try to cover just about anything. So it gives us an opportunity to go a little deeper. This is for the people that maybe go to the 1 day and they're like, oh my gosh, we got to all the way to the end of
Right.
the day, and I feel like I'm just getting started. Where do we
Yeah.
where do we go to keep going with this? And so I have that, and then also my online training course, that iescertified.com, which I started that about 7 years ago.
Oh, wow.
The IES stands for Inspections, Estimates, and Supplements, which is essentially what the entire training course encompasses. And I have over 4,000 people in that course that I don't, not all of them active, but that
Right.
have enrolled in the course. So I take a lot of pride in that too.
No.
But, and that was quite active during the year of COVID also, with it being virtual.
Yeah, I imagine so. So I got a couple questions for you.
Sure.
Kind of like we call them rapid fire. And what I got is
I didn't bring any kind of vest or anything, any kind of protection.
one habit that's made the biggest difference in your success. would you-
Documentation.
Really?
Documentation. And I assume you're talking about success, with insurance companies, or
Yeah.
maybe success.
Well, and you as Chad.
For me, I think just personally, I would say consistency, over a long period of time. That's one thing about, there are a lot of trainers in our industry. There are coachers and
Yeah.
so-called influencers and things. And a lot of those people I've seen, they're here and then gone. And so certain types of training that's been out there that I've noticed has revolved around sort of fads and trends that are here and gone. And so I take a lot of pride in the fact that if you were to go to look at my YouTube channel, for example, and see a video from 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago,
Yeah.
you would still, if you applied the things in that video, they still apply now. So
Right.
I think I've stayed with solid fundamentals that consistently over time has proved, to be the most reliable strategies and tactics, right? And I think the best thing I have going for me is the fact that people know that I've been around, right? Like I've been doing this for a long period of time, and so I think the consistency of just always moving forward,
relevant, yeah.
always staying relevant. I know you were working on a fire job,
Yeah.
fire damage job together on a condo building, and that's my way of staying relevant.
Right.
Is being in the trenches.
When you
still
showed
today.
up, that is one question I asked you. Why are you doing this? You seem to be doing well, and your answer was to keep on my toes.
Yeah, I think you gotta, and that's really the idea behind the practitioner, right? Is that it's someone who is doing, someone
Right.
who is actively doing, and that's something that's always been a pet peeve of mine. Is seeing people always planning to do things.
Right. Well, the industry changes.
Yeah.
You gotta stay relevant. with it.
Absolutely, definitely. The insurance companies are always changing up their tactics. They're always changing up their strategies, and they have the most money. They have the most ability, the most power. They have the most power, and so you're not going to change them.
No.
You're not going. I get a lot of people like, how can we make these insurance companies change and do the right thing? Like, you're not going to change them. We can only do our part. There's Xactimate as a pricing software, which is, just for anybody that doesn't know what that is, which is for over 90%. Over 90% of the insurance companies, I believe, use Xactimate.
Yeah.
The other 10% or up to 10% use Symbility.
I don't know
which
why.
Is
we don't use it very often, clearly, because
it's okay. Yeah, and I've called it different things through my career too. I get that one, but the common thing is we don't tend to like it.
Right.
The other 10%, that other software that they use, which looks a lot like Xactimate. When you see their estimate, it looks similar.
What's their play on that? You think they did that intentionally?
The insurance industry?
Yeah.
Well, no, it's always been around. Symbility's always been around. I mean, as far as my experience, like I've always seen Xactimate and Symbility. It's always something that I've seen. In fact, Allstate used to use Symbility. When I first came into the industry, all of the estimates were done by Allstate that were Symbility. And then they finally changed over. I was very happy when they made the switch back to Xactimate. But Xactimate updates every month, right? And it tends to, usually when you see an Xactimate estimate, it tends to be higher than Symbility. But I see a common thing for both softwares that they use is that a lot of adjusters don't use the software like it was intended to be used. And there's a lot of things that they don't do properly that Xactware, the company who makes that software, trains you to do. And they conveniently just sort of leave that out. And the result is the estimate is lower. But if you were to go and use Symbility, you're going to find a lot of that there too.
Right.
That a lot of the things that they're supposed to be doing to write that estimate, they're not doing, and they're leaving things out. And I think we've all seen where maybe we have an estimate that is in Xactimate, and theirs is Symbility, and going through that supplemental process, they end up adding line items to their Symbility estimate to get it to around where your Xactimate estimate is. And then all of a sudden, you see all these other ways and these abilities to add money to their estimate in Symbility, right? And so it's just using that software and using it correctly. I used to tell people, when you use Xactimate and they use Symbility, stand firm in your Xactimate pricing. Because not everybody uses Xactimate anyway. And so if you didn't use Xactimate, stand firm in your pricing. And eventually, they're going to have to acknowledge your form of pricing. They're going to have to do something to get to work that out, or at least
they
get
can't
somewhat.
force you to do it.
That's right. They can't force you to use their software. And so I always told people, okay, using that logic, if you use Xactimate, stand firm on your Xactimate. Tell them, I don't use Symbility, right? This is my pricing. But now, lately, in the past year or so, I've been advising people, maybe it's about time for you to start using Symbility, right? And I've been telling people, use Symbility. Use Symbility. Get in there, get yourself familiar, learn how to use it. Like if you're a user of Xactimate, learn how to use Symbility, because there are ways in there to get to that accurate estimate by using correct line items, just like there is in Xactimate. That would be my advice at the end of 2025 right now.
And why is that?
It's because I find that, great question, by the way. I find that speaking the language of the insurance company is crucial.
Right.
It just makes for an easier process, less friction, right? It's less of an uphill battle along the way, right? Where if they use Xactimate, then if I use Xactimate, we're speaking the same language, right? We're kind of going with the grain, with the flow of traffic. And that results in less delay at the end of the day, right?
True.
And a higher job price.
Yeah, fair. Yeah, we don't see it a ton, clearly. But it is one thing that comes up here and there.
Sure.
And it's a little frustrating.
What do you do? Do you stand with your Xactimate pricing? Or?
Yeah, or we just send them our Xactimate estimate and say, hey, this is what we got. I'm not going to go buy. We see it maybe a handful of times a year, maybe
Not enough to justify
Yeah.
buying the
Yeah.
software and
I mean,
going
that,
through the learning curve.
and you got to teach people and all that
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
It's tough.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And that's something interesting right there, to make that distinction. If you're a contractor who does not see it a lot, then I would say just stand with your pricing.
Right.
For someone like you, I would just do what you're doing, stand with that pricing.
I mean, it seems that Xactimate is the predominant.
It is. It definitely is. But if someone's watching this where maybe they're in a market where they deal with a certain insurance company that all they use is Symbility, right?
Right.
And
Right.
if they're, predominant amount of claims that they're dealing with is that type of software, then I would say to that contractor, get that software. Go through some training.
Yeah.
Learn that Symbility. If for any reason, learn the language that your opponent is speaking.
That's true.
That's going to help you.
Yeah. No, I get you.
Even if you don't use it, it's good to understand it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, great answer. Thank you. The hardest business lesson you've learned so far?
Whew. We were talking about it yesterday,
Yeah.
actually. I brought it up yesterday. That it never goes away.
Yeah.
It never goes away. I was, let's see, my daughter is 16 now. She was a baby. So it was about 16 years ago. And I was doing what you're doing, as
Yeah.
a contractor. And I was working on a fire damage apartment complex. And I said, what I said to you yesterday, I go, this reminds me of a job I was working on one time. It's just very similar in size, it's 3 floors. And the property owner, little did I know, when he hired me, he owed money on his loan and was in default. The bank had already sued him, and I didn't even know this. So big lesson for me to do some due diligence on my customers. Do a little qualification. Make sure that they're okay to be my customer, right?
Right.
And I felt so silly after the fact, but all of this was going on. There's a clause in his mortgage, because his mortgage is public information. Anybody can look at that, whenever you're getting into any kind of a business relationship, especially as a contractor. Look up and see, have they had liens filed against them? Are they in good standing with their mortgage? Are there any lawsuits that have been filed? But the mortgage had a clause that said basically that any insurance claims the proceeds could be applied directly towards the loan, and that would cause it to go down. So he saw this as a way of getting out of the trouble with his bank. And then, of course, it makes you wonder who started the fire.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like they
Right.
never did. It was an arson case. They never did figure out who started the fire. I've always had questions through the years about that one. But he hired me, and I had already started the work. I was deep into the job. When the insurance checks would come, the mortgage company was listed on there.
Right.
He would sign that. I would FedEx it over to the mortgage company, and they would wire me the funds, like after I got all set up with them. And so it was an easy process. The insurance company, I had a really good relationship with this executive senior adjuster who would come out. I remember meeting him at his office, because he offered to print out the final approved estimate for me from his office, because it was like several hundred pages. He's like, if you'd like, I'll print it out for you at the office. And when I went by there to pick it up, he was telling me thanks for all the work I did. I helped him get a Christmas bonus, because he was just working off of my estimate, my ESX file. So he had to do no work on that thing. But we had a good relationship. And one of the things that came up along the way was, I was telling you about this yesterday, we couldn't remove the sheetrock out of the units because there was asbestos. The building had been built like in the 70s, I believe, and we had it tested, and sure enough, there was asbestos. So we couldn't just go in and remove all of the wet sheetrock that was wet because of the fire department. They come in and there's water everywhere, right? So running down through the levels, and we couldn't remove it. So we had to wait, I think, maybe 2 months, to go through a state process that you have to notify the state. And by the time we hired, got to that point, tested everything, hired an abatement company and got them to move in, it was like 2 months. By the time they removed everything, you can imagine what that water trapped, in between the sheetrock and all the framing, the damage that did. So now we needed to remove all of the framing, all the flooring, all of that stuff. So we got the adjuster back out. And he agreed with all of that, approved several hundred, extra $1,000. I knew that. I saw his approved estimates, so I made the decision to just move forward with all that before receiving the funds from that next phase. You know, I knew that the check was coming. You know, I knew
Right.
that was going to go to the mortgage company and they were going to wire it over to me. I had everybody already going, and it's just, I mean, you probably know what this is like as a contractor. You don't want to stop. Like, you just
No.
want to keep everything going, keep
Yeah.
everyone else on your job site. And that's what I opted to do. And so I had incurred hundreds of thousands of dollars. Oh, and then one day he just locked up all of my equipment, my materials that were on the job site, right?
wow.
Just locked me out of the job site, ghosted me, told me I wasn't allowed back. It sent me a notice that I wasn't allowed back on the property.
What?
And for nothing that I did, right? It was nothing at all. Couldn't give me a reason
Did
why.
you put a lien on the house?
It was a
Or the
apartment
yeah.
complex. Yeah, I put a lien on it, hired an attorney, sued him, right, and ultimately didn't recover anything. You know, ended up giving up after a long time. You know,
Right.
ended up giving up, and my life took other directions, right? And so I just
And it's like cancer. It just makes you miserable.
yes. I mean, it's like, and I tell people this all the time. Try to avoid litigation at all costs, because you're not as a contractor, you're not going to win. You know, I mean, I could have maybe won if I would have stuck that out, but I had thrown so much good money after bad. But more importantly, like you said, it was like a cancer. I had lost focus on
And it'll do that.
other things. I
Negative.
turned down jobs that were more profitable than that job that could have solved my problems because I was so distracted trying to chase, that guy to get my money that I felt he owed me, So huge learning lesson for me.
I've been
Biggest-
there.
The biggest
Yeah.
lesson.
Not on that scale, by the way, but it does. It just chews you up, man. It
Yeah.
just makes you not productive and just in a bad headspace.
Yeah, I think when you learn, as I got older, it comes, and I say this in my events, it boils down to my advice for a contractor as far as what you should put on your contractor or on your contract, like all the legal stuff that's on the back. People think that after having gone through that would be so good, right? That would be rock solid. I would anticipate everything now. My advice instead is to keep it more simple, like to not even have it on there. And yeah, because my viewpoint now is if you get to litigation, you've lost.
Right.
And so now what I try to do is, and as simple as this, stay ahead of your customer in the money.
Yeah.
Period, end of story. Meaning on a job like that, if I'm doing, the work in phases, right, where I'm coming in and I'm doing, the framing in the phases, right? And when I get done with the framing, like new construction, draw schedules, right? When I get to the framing, you give me an eighth of the total RCV, right? When I get that done. When I get to this part, or I get this inspection passed, then you give me an eighth, right? And I say an eighth instead of a dollar amount because that amount's always going to change,
Yeah, because
right?
you get your supplements and everything else.
Right, exactly. And so I would say that if you are providing $20,000 worth of line items, for example, I think you need to have at least 30 in your possession, maybe more, maybe 40, right, of whatever money is there before you move forward. If you're waiting on the mortgage company or you're waiting on the insurance company to actually send the funds, let's wait until if your customer has it, get it in your possession. That's another thing, is that I find too many people where they're doing work, they have a contract, the customer has the money, but it's not in the contractor's possession.
Right. You
There's
got to
a
get the money.
loss
Like you
of
say,
control.
Send the money.
Yeah, send the money. Send the money. Send the money. Loss of control right there. You have to, and this is more about getting the insurance adjuster to send the money. But then I always add to that, once they've sent the money, as the contractor, you need to go pick up the money.
Right.
So crucial. I can't tell you how many jobs that have gone sideways on me because I didn't go get the money. And the client decides to cancel or hire someone else.
Or they decide to go gambling. Or
Yeah, and it's like you don't even understand. You don't never get an explanation because they just ghost you.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Come at me, go ahead, sue me."
that one job I told you about that happened last year in Decatur, similar. I got on one of my guys. I said, "Hey, we should have got the money a lot sooner. You you shouldn't have waited. You know, so I get
You
it.
have to be relentless
Yeah,
to go collect what I call the cash that's on the street. Right? It's out, your money's out there on the street. You have to be relentless.
Right.
And that ended up being a great skill of mine as a contractor. Where and a lot of the other things were not, I did not have great skills at, right?
Yeah.
How to plan production, you know.
Right.
I put the calendar will be all planned out minute by minute. 7:30 a.m. Monday morning, everything's derailed. That's
Yeah.
how I was, you know.
but it happens in the trades.
It does, but one thing I had a knack for was, and I would have sometimes multiple sales reps that were out there working for me, you know, and a lot going on. At one point in Florida, I remember having like 80 projects at one time on the board, and these were big jobs, right?
Yeah.
A lot of them. But I had a knack for knowing where the money was, right? Like I always knew when Mrs. Jones is supposed to get a check. I would have sales reps come up to me like, "Hey, Chad, do you think I can get a draw?" You know,
Yeah.
and I'd be like, "Yeah, for sure. Your customer, Sandy Smith, was supposed to get a check on, you know, from the insurance
Yeah.
company according to the last time we met them out there. Have you been out there to pick that up? Go get that check, bring
And
it
I
back
got
in
your draw."
here, and I'll give you a check." You know, like I always kind of knew where not only my customers were, but where my sales reps' customers were. Having a knack for, you know, it's been about a week. I bet they have a check, right? Or I
Yeah.
bet that check. Just knowing how the insurance companies work, mortgage companies, and that sort of thing. I would advise any contractors working on insurance projects to also be directly involved, if not controlling, the mortgage process. And what I mean is a lot of jobs, insurance companies name the mortgage company
Oh, yeah.
on the check, like much like that fire damage job I was talking about where I had. And we do this in residential jobs where a lot of contractors will just let the customer deal with that, right? Like deal with, you know, call your bank, find out what they want from you, let us know, right? Meanwhile, you're working on their house, doing all this stuff,
Yeah.
and no money is flowing but you're thinking you're okay because they, you know, the insurance company wrote the check.
We're
But-
guilty of it sometimes.
Yeah, and you go back and you ask Mr. or Mrs. Jones, like, how's that going? Have you been in touch with the mortgage company? Oh, Chad, you know, I've been busy. You know,
Yeah.
or you ask them again later, like, I did send it in, and they sent me a packet of everything they want me to send to them. You know, they want your W-9, they want a copy of the insurance adjuster estimate, the insurance agreement. They want me to sign this affidavit and get it notarized and conditional lien release and all these things. And they're like, you know, I've been busy and my wife's sister's coming in from out of town and all these things going on. And they've never done that before. Whereas we do this every day. So let me deal with this, sign this form. I'm going to deal with all of that. And like back when I had those 80 claims at one time, my younger sister worked for me full time. And her job at that time, her only job was to deal with mortgage companies every day, all day long, aggressively, relentlessly on the phone with them, right? Like, and we would send them everything. We'd have the customer sign everything they were supposed to sign the check, put it into a FedEx envelope, along with another FedEx envelope
Send back.
for them to use to send back, right? Everything that we paid for, but next day, not snail mail,
Yeah.
and that every day that we can reduce, a day delay that we can reduce is so much better for us as the contractor because the profit's not spread out over a larger amount of time, but also for the customer, right? But my sister could call them and say, "Hey, we sent you a packet. Looks like, you know, the Janice Thompson signed for it at 8:30 a.m. this morning. What else do you need to get the money out?" Right?
Yeah.
And so that's very, very, very important fundamentals for
Yeah,
contractors.
to hold the job up.
Yeah.
And no one talks about, well, not no one, but we haven't talked about your production inside because you only got so much money to carry all these jobs.
Oof.
If you don't have money and you're funding them all,
Where is it going to come from, right? Are you going to take the money away from another job that's in production? It's not right to do that, right?
No.
Are you going to finance it yourself? You know, are you going to go? Where's the money going to come from? Incredible point, right?
Yeah.
You have to let the job fund itself.
well, even if you do get the money, if you get a half deposit, most likely you're going to fund some portion of it because you got to pay your guys, you got to pay your materials.
Yes.
After that, you're already in it. You're already funding it. Don't fund
You
it.
are going to be the one holding the bag at the end of that job, funding it at the end of that job, right? And that's how you have to think of it. So if you ever get pushback from a customer saying, hey, I don't, because to be clear, I would advise any contractor that if they get the insurance check, how much should they give it to you or give to you? The whole thing.
Right.
That I think that it should never go into their bank. They should just sign it right over, the whole thing, right? And sometimes you'll hear from the customer, they hear that and they're like, wait a minute, that sounds like you want me to pay you 100% up front. Because that's what they think. That's what they're thinking, this money that the insurance company, not knowing that the recoverable depreciation has been taken out, could be a significant amount. That's still being withheld. The deductible, and they should be paying you that deductible right at that point, right? And also not knowing that someone like me with 25 years experience has seen thousands of adjuster estimates. I've never seen one that wasn't short. They don't know that. They think that the estimate they have from the insurance company, they have to go find a contractor to do the job for that amount or less. They don't know that it's missing line items.
And
so,
a lot of them tell us, if we supplement it, they're like, well, is that our money? No. It's missing items
found me
that
a
were
bonus.
on it,
Yeah,
It's
they don't know
missing
that.
items that were in the bid that weren't in the bid that we had to find, or it's cost incurred, stuff
Absolutely.
you find that you didn't know you were going to find.
Yeah, absolutely. And that goes to another important point. I think the number one thing that you can do with your customers and this has so many overwhelming benefits, is you must educate your customer. Okay.
And that's kind of why we're doing this.
Yeah.
Just 'cause this is educating everybody involved, because a lot of people don't understand it.
Show them.
And like you said, you
Yeah.
had a very good point. A lot of people have never dealt with this in their life.
Yes.
We do, but
Yeah.
they don't. And they hear horror stories about contractors. Oh, well, we don't want to pay them 100%. They might rip us off. Yes, there are people that do that, but that's why we like to operate a different way.
Yeah, I think if they understand, and show them behind the curtain, right? There's a lot of people that have asked me, contractors, is there a way where I could just not allow my customers to see how much I'm getting from the insurance company? And I'm like, no, man. I mean, yeah, you could try to do that if you wanted to, but I actually suggest the exact opposite, the total opposite. Like, I think that in my experience was I would like to copy my clients on
the
any
email,
any correspondence I have with the insurance company. And what that does is they can see just how hard I'm working, how many hoops I had to jump through
that's what we
to
do
achieve
too.
the desired result, right?
Yeah.
And so I think you can, if you sit down and educate your customers and show them why it is that you don't take the insurance company's word for it, right? And one of the things I would recommend doing is sitting down, any customer you ever meet, is to sit down with them and show them. I would recommend having a binder that you carry with you that has in it an example, an actual insurance estimate from a job that you've done, right, from one of your customers.
Yeah.
Every page of that estimate, redact out the customer, the personal information, but this is just in a binder that you don't give to them, but you go through with them. And it's in there, and it's a job where it started at this amount, and you can see they approved all these things in the estimate, but you and I know it's missing items, right? And then directly after that, this binder has your version of that estimate, the estimate that your company wrote to, like, as the solution that dealt with solving some of these missing line items, right? And then followed by a copy of the final approved estimate from that same insurance company showing that they went from here, right? And they agreed with you. Okay.
Right.
Now, why didn't they just do that to begin with? Okay. And
Because they like to fight.
through that process, showing every page of that, right, to that customer and explaining to them things like building codes, okay, and why that's important that those are included in the estimate and that the insurance company actually has to pay for those items, right, and why, and show them, kind of that process so that they can see that this is common for insurance companies
I
to
think
not include everything.
At your last seminar I went to, you mentioned that. I think you called out a State Farm agent that was there, and you said, do you guys ever get trained in building code?
Adjuster, yeah, it was
Yeah.
a former State Farm adjuster.
Yeah.
Go ahead, yeah.
Do you ever get trained in building code? And their answer was no.
Yeah.
And that's a red flag. I mean, that's not good.
So that's interesting that you remember that. I hope that everybody that saw that remembers it, right? Because in every event, I ask people that are there, and that was a great one because of how many people were there. But I asked how many people here are mitigation contractors, right? How many people do roofing? How many people here are public adjusters? How many attorneys? We had an attorney at my event last week, and get those sometimes. And then I'm doing this on purpose, and nobody really knows what I'm doing. I'm like, are there any former insurance adjusters here? And there's usually a handful, right? And then I'll hone in on them, right? And I'll say, oh, guys, and I'm assuming you're not working as insurance adjusters anymore, right? And they're like, no, and there's laughter. I'm like, okay, so just to be clear, you're rehabilitated insurance adjusters. And everybody's laughing. And they're like, yeah. I'm like, all right, don't worry. Thank you for the courage to raise your hand. We're not going to throw you under the bus, but I want your help. When you became an adjuster, did you go through some kind of a learning course to prepare for that?
Right.
Yes, they all say yes, right? And what state did you get your adjuster license in? And I go through each one and ask them, and they tell me. And I say, okay. And let me ask you, and which carriers did you work for? State Farm, Allstate, Nationwide. They name them all, right? And I ask, okay, and one by one I go through. Was there anything in the training course when you were preparing to take your test, for the adjuster course or for the adjuster license, that mentioned anything at all about building codes? No. Go through them all? No. Okay, was there anything on the test, the state test that you took to become an adjuster about building codes? Was there even one question? No, right? And then I'm like, okay, was there any training provided by any of the carriers about building codes? No. Through the years, 7 years of doing these events, right, I've heard from hundreds of those adjusters who have answered those questions. No one's ever said yes to any of those questions except for two people said that the carrier did provide some training on the building codes, but it was optional. It was optional on the training.
Do you remember what carriers that was?
I don't remember who they were, but it's just that is eye-opening for everyone to see that. So you remember that. It's like, and so
it's huge.
It's huge, and that right there, why I want to hammer that home is because in all of this, the insurance adjuster is my opponent. Okay, that's my opponent. As hard as that is to deal with, as loaded with money they are, right? But it comes down to this common person and me, right? That's my opponent. And if you're into sports or anything like that, these teams will analyze their opponents and study their opponents, right?
Yeah.
They'll watch film and break down the footage. And you talk about football, basketball, boxing, you watch your opponent and you're trying to learn their style and the way that they move. And you're also looking for weaknesses. You're looking for openings in that opponent's game, right? Yeah. Openings where you can attack and you could have the advantage. And see, we start out in this scenario at a disadvantage, the contractor that is, because what are the adjusters always saying? They're always saying, we're not going to approve that line item because the policy excludes it. The policy doesn't allow for this, the policy that. Whereas contractors, we're not allowed to delve into the policy and into the coverage stuff. Like in other words, we can't say back to that adjuster, yeah, but the policy also says this.
You can't speak policy.
That's right. So you're out of bounds. That would be more for public adjusters, attorneys, right? And I actually do believe that the contractor, even given that, we have the most power by staying away from some of that stuff. But nevertheless, because that exists, we start out at a disadvantage, like with one arm tied behind our back.
Right.
We need to find something. Okay, so we need to find their weaknesses. To me, boom, there it is. Why is it that out of these thousands of adjuster estimates, they're all missing line items? One reason, building codes. If they don't know about the building codes, why would you ever expect them to have anything? So, of course, I'm talking about ordinance and law, or OL coverage, which is building code really compliance coverage. People call it building code upgrade coverage. I call it building code compliance because no matter where you are as a contractor, if you're listening to this, no matter where you're located, no matter where you are, building codes are required. Yeah, but Chad, you don't understand. I work out in the middle of nowhere. We don't have building codes. Yes, you do. I can prove it. Building codes are required in every state, everywhere in every state.
They
Okay,
follow some form of it.
they do, and so you have to understand how that works. But if you're ever working on a roofing project, everything on that roof just about needs to be replaced, like all the vents, all the pipe jacks, all the skylight flashing, the chimney flashing, the step flashing, the sidewall flashing, the L flashing, the flashing, and that's because one single building code requires that. All flashing, rusted, damaged, or deteriorated. And so like that's just one single building code requires that every one of those things gets replaced because of the flashing. Not like the power attic fans, but the base of it does, right? And so maybe not the skylight, but at least the flashing kit on the skylight. But you have to know those building codes to know that. That's much like a speed limit sign. They're required. They're actual laws. And if they have the coverage and if that code's required, the insurance company has to pay for that building code compliance line item. And if they don't have the coverage, you still have to do it. It's still a building code. It's still a law. But most people don't know about these laws, including the contractors. That's something that's quite shocking for me. Yeah, it's alarming. And when I first started learning and implementing this, I looked around thinking that I was just one of the only contractors who had no idea about these building codes. That was me, by the way. When I was a contractor, I didn't know about these codes, didn't know that they were required, didn't know about ordinance and law coverage, right? And how I dealt with that is I just kept it silent because I thought that the people who worked for me, they knew about the codes. So they'd just bring them up when we needed them. I can now look back and see that they didn't know them either. It was like, and I look around the industry and I see that it's like this everywhere. Most contractors don't even know which building codes apply for any certain job. And it's alarming. But the good news is that, like, for me, I didn't understand it because if I looked at a code book, for me, it was like looking at Japanese language, and I don't speak Japanese. So that was a problem for me, right? It was like I didn't understand it, but over time, somebody helped me simplify it, and it wasn't as complicated as I actually thought it was. And I'm by no means a building code expert. Even after learning and teaching about it, I'm not a building code expert. But what I do know is enough to make me deadly. And if you think about that, you don't need to know a lot to become completely deadly versus your opponent because they know nothing about it.
And if you need help, you can always call your local, municipality and
absolutely
probably figure it out if you don't know.
You just got to get started. You got to get started in looking at, like, if you're a roofing contractor, look at the roof assemblies chapter. Like if you do residential jobs, that would be in the International Residential Code. If you do commercial jobs, you look in the International Building Code. Roof assemblies in the IRC, International Residential Code, is in Chapter 9. Roof assemblies in the International Building Code is in Chapter 15. They're both pretty similar. They're almost identical. But you could go right now and Google the International Residential Code and look at that code right now for free at the International Code Council, which is who publishes that code. And I think people just don't really know where to go, right? And they think they have to go pay money to learn it. You really don't. It's free. It's at your fingertips right now.
I mean, I've had insurance companies try to talk us out of doing things that code. They're like, oh, no, don't do that. Like we're fighting one right now. It says a lady's saying it's a recommendation. And clearly we submitted evidence that it's a requirement. And she's trying to tell us she don't have to pay because it's only a recommendation.
That's an interesting one too. And let me give like the anecdote to that problem on this podcast. Like if anybody else has a problem with that, because they don't speak the language and they don't understand building codes, when you start using building codes and submitting it to adjusters, they start giving you back answers that don't make a lot of sense. and a lot of times they'll glitch out because they're off guard. They don't know what they're talking about. But they have been trained to hurl back basically the same two programmed responses. One is, show that to me on city letterhead. And because they've done that to you, because contractors don't know where to find it, they have trouble just producing that, right? And that's dumb, because if you hear that, you should know that that's coming from someone who doesn't know about building codes, because of the idea of show it to me on city letterhead.
Right.
If they knew about building codes, they could easily go do a search and see that for themselves. The second part of it is they say, I need to see something from you in writing. And this is to touch on yours.
Yeah.
It's another, this is another example of what they said to you. It's just said in a little bit different way. I need to see something in writing from you, from the city, that shows that they actually enforce that code.
Well, actually, this was from the manufacturer of the shingle. So we had we don't use Tamco, but this was a Tamco shingle.
Mm-hmm.
So we got, installation recommendations from Tamco.
Ooh,
Showed them.
I'll help you with that one too. Yeah, yeah.
And we're going to win, but
Manufacturer recommendation.
Yeah.
Recommendation, right? Because so that just means suggestion.
My bad. What it said was manufacturer requirement.
Specifications, requirement, right?
She keeps calling it a recommendation.
She says recommendation.
And
okay, great.
In plain English, it says requirement.
Right. Okay. So to continue what I was saying, which is show me that it's and I'll come back to that. Show me that it's enforced, right? Well, then I ask in the meetings, these ones that you came to, which is, how many people have gone to the city building department and have gotten it in writing that it is enforced, right? That they require it. Like, because they're saying, I see the building code, but show me that it's required, right? And so you'll see a handful of people raise their hands. Like, good on you guys. Great job doing that, by the way. And if I were to go and ask them further, are you able to do that in every city? They would say, no, I'm not able to get every building department to even put that in writing. It's actually hard to get them to do it sometimes.
It was. Our building and zoning guy, he was like, I don't want to do it. Everybody's going to call me if I do this.
And, they don't want to do it. They don't want to put it in writing. So the fact that they got some of these people got some of them, it's like, good on you. That was hard to do. I'm sure it was. But then I ask them this. How many people in this room, by show of hands, have ever once seen in your life an insurance adjuster show you something in writing from a city building official that says that they do not enforce a building code? Never have I ever seen hands raised to that, except for 2 times. There's always 2, right? Then this lady said it happened to her, but she got the building official fired. And then the other one, I think there's more to that story. Like there's more going on, and I don't think it was quite that, right? But that's what I would do. I would turn it back around on them.
Yeah.
But
I've never thought of that one.
Yeah. Well, if you look and see the document, if you can find it, that actually made that a law in their city, which is like they've adopted a certain version of those codes, whether it be the 2024 version, 2021, 2018, 2015. Every 3 years, those codes come out. So as I said earlier, International Residential Code, International Building Code, those come out every 3 years. You need to know which version that is by going to the city to find out which version.
What they're implementing.
Find out which version that they adopt, the code adoptions. If you dig further, that adoption is an actual ordinance in that city. There should be even an ordinance number to it. How did they make that a law is what you need to find out. There's probably a period of time where they seek public comment. It's statutorily laid out how it goes. Then they have to put it in front of the city council after a period of time. City council votes on it, right? Just an example of how most cities do it, right? Then the mayor signs it, city secretary, attorneys, city manager, right? So certain people will sign the document. And so I want to find that document, and then I want to go send an email to every single person that signed that document, individually, by the way, not a group email, and also not from my construction email address, but like from John Q. Citizen, at gmail.com, like my concerned citizen, right?
Yeah.
And not a group email, but individually. And I want to ask them, I want to say, hey, I'm looking at all of your laws that are published on your website. Are there any of these laws and ordinances that you do not currently enforce? And then you're going to get an email back, maybe not from the mayor, but from the mayor's staff, right?
Right.
And You're not going to get an email that says, yes, we enforce all the laws except for the flashing code and the building codes, right?
Right.
Like, it's not going to say that. It's not going to be, and I would take the response from each one of those personnel and send it on back to the adjuster. So not just one person. So in other words, just skipping right over the building department. And that's assuming that the building department would not give you that document that they're asking for, right? That will shred that. That argument is completely done. Now, to your point, back to that manufacturer requirement in your words. And she's saying, yeah, but no, the way I read it is a manufacturer recommendation. Okay, right. Now let's go through this. Let's look at the roof assembly chapter. If we're in International Residential Code, that's chapter 9. Chapter 15 in the International Building Code. What I want everybody here to do that's watching this is go to Google International Code Council and find whichever version you want of the International Residential Code or the International Building Code. Go into it, click into it. Click on Chapter 9 in the table of contents if you're in the International Residential Code. That'll take you to roof assemblies. Or if you're in the International Building Code, click on Chapter 15. That'll take you to roof assemblies there. Whichever one you're in, I want you to go up into if you're on Chrome, go up into the options and click Find. There's an option for Find on the page, basically. And then type in the word manufacturer. If you're in the International Residential Code, that will come up 46 times. 46 times where it says in the building code that you must comply with manufacturer specifications. Go to the next one. Must comply with manufacturer requirements.
Right.
And then go to this one. Must comply with all manufacturer instructions. Right. It says that this is in the building code, right?
Right.
Meaning that it's not a suggestion. It's actually required by law just as much as the 35-mile-an-hour speed limit sign. Yep. All right? Now, watch this. This will help the person that says they want to see if it's even enforced. Let's say that you were the adjuster actually shows you a document. They went to the city, and the city says, nope, we see that that's a code, but we don't enforce that code. And they have it in a document.
Yeah.
And I've never seen that happen, but let's just say they were able to do that. They do a lot of times say, I talked to the city and they said they don't enforce it. Do you have a recording call? Recorded call? Do you have something in writing? No, nobody ever has that in writing, but apparently that's what they heard. Okay, did you also call the county to see if they enforce the code? Yeah. Because not only does the city adopt a certain version of the building codes, but the county does as well. And a lot of times you won't be in a city. You're in an unincorporated area. And some people will say, yeah, but the county doesn't enforce the jurisdiction or that's out of their jurisdiction. Okay, but it's a county requirement. Watch this though. So let's say that the city or that the adjuster is able to show you something in writing from the city and from the county saying that they do not enforce their codes. Okay, great. Did they go to the state also? Did they go to the state and get you something in writing that says the state does not require the building codes implementation? No way. My point is that there's a requirement in every city, in every county, and in every state. The state has the bare minimum building code requirements. And so that's great that you found a way to say that the city doesn't care and the city is just going to turn their head every time you speed. They don't enforce it. Meaning you can drive right by the cop at 50 miles an hour in a school zone. He's not even going to pull you over. That's what that means, right? They're not going to enforce building codes. And so, let's say the city doesn't enforce it. The county doesn't enforce it. The state doesn't also. And so there's a number of different ways to shoot that apart. But ultimately, the real problem is the adjuster actually believes that. They believe that stuff. Right. They've been trained to act that way by other people who also don't understand building codes, ordinance, and law.
House, would they act that way?
They've been looking for every way to get every item included. Exactly. Good question.
Yeah. So what's a misconception about the insurance world that drives you crazy?
Ooh, I'm glad you asked this question, right? And we were talking about it yesterday on that job site. We were walking through. I do a lot of social media videos, and I have a YouTube channel, and I do advertising. So I get a lot of trolls, who comment in my post behind their keyboard.
Oh, yeah.
It's amazing how many of them come out late at night, especially on the weekend. They've had a couple of drinks and they're feeling fired up, and they want to take it out on me.
Yeah.
Or when they wake up hungover, but it's people that would never say these things, but I get a lot of people who they end up seeing my video somehow. They're not a contractor, which is who I'm really targeting. I want contractors to see my stuff. But it's a lot of property owners, and I want them to see it too, because I want them to be educated on these things. But it's really not who I'm targeting, and they'll see it, and some of them will get angry at me, and they're like, "Okay, I see the problem. This is why my homeowner's insurance rates are sky high, because of jerks like you who are out there teaching other contractors how to get more money from the insurance company. You're trying to drive the prices up." You're trying to suck these insurance companies dry, and as a result, they're raising my premiums. And we were talking about that yesterday.
Yeah.
And I can understand why somebody would think that, right? They're not thinking that 100% of insurance adjuster estimates out there are short. 100%, man. Right? I'm going to come out of my chair here just to show them my passion about this. It drives me nuts that people believe that the insurance adjuster estimate has everything included in it, that it's not missing anything, right? But it's delay, deny, defend. That's what the insurance companies do. And so, unfortunately, though, most contractors, most homeowners, property owners don't know how to effectively get these missing line items approved. So instead, what do? They sue. They sue the insurance company, right? They litigate. They hire an attorney way too fast, way before they ever should, and they sue the insurance company. And what does the insurance company do? They freeze up and they fight, right? And they end up spending all their money to the attorneys. Who pays for that, right? It doesn't come out, and that drives me crazy too. Whenever there's losses by the insurance company, it doesn't come out of the executive's profit. It doesn't come out of it doesn't do that. They pass the loss right on to the customer, which is corrupt. I think the insurance industry they're an insurance company. They should take the loss, right?
They should not pass it on.
That's right, but they're a business, so they're gonna say, no, we're not gonna take a loss here. We know we can pass this along, so we will.
Because it's a monopoly. You have to have it. That's why. That's one of the reasons.
You have to have it. It's a requirement. They're going to prey on that. But who has the most lobbyists in the world, right? What industry has the most lobbyists? That's the insurance industry. That they have the most money, but they're also using that money to lobby the government to change laws that are favorable to them. Yep. So whenever and it's both sides. You can't choose a side politically on this, because it is both sides. They are pouring money into both sides. That way, no matter who wins, they own them. There is no politician who's really going to make a law that's for real, against insurance. And they'll pass laws that make it look that way, but really don't go. Buried in the bill is some kind of favor that they're doing for. And so why are they using all of our money as the consumer, the premiums, to hire lobbyists, to hire celebrities, to hire Pat Mahomes to do commercials, and Aaron Rodgers and the discount double check and all that stuff that we lived through in our lifetime, right? All the bowl games that they sponsor. Just imagine. I mean, just if you're a football fan and you have to sit and watch through commercials. Every other commercial is Peyton Manning with Nationwide, Pat Mahomes with State Farm. How much money are they paying these athletes? I mean, where's this money going? So if you're a consumer that you want to pick on somebody like me, who's spending a little bit of pocket change on Facebook ads, I mean, come on, that drives me
And the contractor's
crazy.
doing the right thing. We're arguing to get the job done right. They want to undercut it and give you something that's less. And back to your point, I think one of the reasons they write these estimates short is because a lot of contractors aren't willing to fight, and they really are just willing to settle. Hey, I'll do it for this, or hey, I just don't work with insurance because it's not enough.
Too frustrating.
Yeah.
Been there, done that. Yeah. Yeah. Got burned.
Yeah.
Bad. Not going to do that anymore.
I hear that
Yeah.
all the time.
Yeah, that's a good point too. I hammer home on this is that, and they try to get you to settle with them, to try to agree with them on some lower amount. They really can hit a home run out of the park if they can get the contractor to do that. And what I mean is, the adjuster has an estimate that's $20,000, and maybe the contractor has an estimate for twice the amount at $40,000. The adjuster reviews everything and says, oh, okay, yeah, and I can see we're missing some items. I'll concede that with you. And it looks like you have all these additional line items. A lot of we left out, but not all of them are necessary. Right, some of those are necessary, but not all of them.
Right.
We don't see $40,000 worth of damage, but I will give you 30. Right,
Yeah.
I'll take it from the 20 where we were up to the 30. Right, and give you an additional 10. I sent you a copy of the estimate that I came up with that reflects that. Take a look at that, and if you agree with it, let me know, and I'll get that check out in the mail for the additional 10,000. Right, and so what are they doing? They're dangling an additional
You're
10,000.
dangling the carrot.
Yeah, and it's not enough, but it is cash. And so what do? A lot of us will just say, well, it's extra cash. I'll take the cash, right?
I'll settle and move along.
I'll settle. It's not where I want to be, but it's additional money. I'll take it, and I'll still help my client, and we'll get through this. And I'm, like you said, just moving along. Keep it moving, right? And my thing is, you do not have to settle. That's not up to the contractor to do any settling with insurance companies. That's for maybe the property owner wants to do that. Maybe an attorney wants to do that. Maybe a public adjuster wants to do that. But the property owner themselves, the contractor themselves, we do not settle. That is not our duty to settle. That's not what we do. My response to that adjuster would be, well, I can't agree to anything. Do send the estimate, right? I want to see it, right? But I can't agree to anything. Because we have to vet that. We have to run that through our estimating team. We have to review that, right? Your estimate.
Right.
But I can tell you is that we are the contractor who was hired to perform all repairs that are prescribed by this claim, and that's what we plan to do. So go ahead and send that, right? Send the estimate and send that money. Send the money. Send the money. Right, because we're planning to move forward. Right, we're hired to perform all repairs that are prescribed by you. That's what we plan to do. When we do review everything through our review process, if we find that there's anything left out of this, then this is not, we can't perform the job for this. We'll let you know. Well, if anything comes up, we'll let you know. Right, but for now, send the money. Send the money. Right, and of course, I always add to that. Make sure as the contractor go pick up that money when they do. But you don't have to agree to the amount though. You can get that additional $10,000 off the table, and we'll circle back to them later. But we made $10,000 in the right direction, right? Like we're heading in the right direction. So instead of getting frustrated and stalemated, with adjusters because we can't get them to agree to our estimate, no matter what we try, we put all of our stock in that fight. We die on that hill, which is to try to get that adjuster to agree. And if he doesn't, to heck with the whole thing. We'll just walk away, right? That's nonsense. That's lack of experience. When you're around long enough, you realize you don't have to spend any energy whatsoever fighting with that adjuster. I would much prefer to get along with the adjuster and get them to go as far as I can get them to go, right? And then get them. When they get to a certain amount, they don't want to go any further. You kind of agree to disagree, but take the money off the table, and then that adjuster is usually gone. By the time the money goes out, they're off the case. And so then we can circle back with a supplemental request to the inside, which a lot of times, most of the time, is handled by another adjuster anyway. And the only way to go from there is forward. They're not going to go backwards and say, oh, because you're coming at us, we're going to go back and take some of the money back that we gave you before. No, there's only one way to go, which is up. Only one way to go, which is forward. And so we don't need to get bogged down about an estimate, because an estimate is really, we put a lot of stock into an estimate. But think about the word estimate. An estimate.
Not a guarantee.
It is just an estimate. Yeah. What is an estimate? It's a prediction of the future, right? It's the adjuster's prediction of the future versus our prediction of the future. How are you going to win that fight? It's really a hypothetical, right? It's a fantasy.
What if?
We're arguing about a fantasy. Stop arguing about a fantasy. Get the adjuster to go as far as you can get them to go. Get them to write the check. Take the money off the table. Let them go. Let them go. Then circle back, right? And sometimes we get these things done in increments where we don't get the full approval the first time from the insurance company, and that frustrates us, right? But that's how this game works. Sometimes we have to get them inch by inch, increment in increments, right? Incrementally.
Moving along. Yeah.
Yes, like we get them to pay this amount now. That's great. Take the money off the table. We come back at them a month later. We get more,
Yeah.
and maybe we have to go through several rounds of that. You know, some people say they ask me, you know, how many rounds of supplementing do you do, or should you do? That's right. As many as it takes, as many as necessary. There's no limit to that. That's really the beauty about insurance restoration is that as long as you keep the door open, you could always go back to the insurance company and get them to cover things that they're supposed to cover, that are legitimate and accurate, reasonable items that are a part of the job. Those should not be up to,
you know,
what's that?
as long as you document.
As long as you document, right? That's right. Yeah, I think that's the number one way to win approval on any line item for any job is through documentation, evidence, and proof, right? And there are no shortcuts. People come to my events are like, I was hoping you'd give me a shortcut, but now you're telling me I got to work harder. You know, that's what it is that, you know, I think you should be taking, and you know this, hundreds of photos. There's no such thing as too many photos, but essentially the good news is that although the insurance companies always miss line items, every single insurance company has a process for dealing with the missing line items. But in order to get them approved, you have to prove it. You have to have documentation that has evidence and proof of what the line item is.
And usually that's, you know, building code or something.
Absolutely.
Along those lines.
Yeah, if the building code is required, then you have to not only just put the line item in there because you know it's required, but now you have to show them why the line item is there. And so, well, the line item is there because of building code. So now you have to show them the building code, right? And the reason why I'm using that building code is because the city requires this set of building code, and I need to show them that, the code adoption. And so I think, and it's like I have to dumb it down and make it like one of my clients said, it's like painting by numbers. I have to make it like painting by numbers for the adjuster. I thought that was a great analogy that I'm going to start using. Thank you, Frank. I'll tell him about that. But it's like we've dumbed it down and made it like painting by numbers for these adjusters who don't understand this stuff. And most of them, this is funny. When I realized that most contractors don't understand building codes, it was probably about 7 years ago. And I constantly was seeing things on like Facebook and groups, like roofing groups and forums and stuff, where I'd see a guy say, hey, can somebody send me over the flashing code? And they're talking about that code I was talking about earlier. And you'll see like 10 people send over this guy a building code, right? But if you look at the codes that are being sent, they're all a little different. It's not the same exact code. There's a little bit different variations of it. And I wonder why that is. And I can see the problem is that if that guy were to ask me for help, I'd have to ask him a couple questions.
Right.
I would need to know some information to give him the right building code. So I would ask him, well, is it residential or is it commercial? That way I'd know whether to take it from the International Residential Code or the International Building Code. But then I'd also need to know, where is it located? That way I could find out which version of that code that city requires. I'd need to know that. I can't just send them the random code. And so I can see right away that this guy doesn't understand building codes, the guy needing the help. And all 10 of the contractors who gave him the help, they don't know how it works either, right? And why wasn't it one specific building code? And so I can see that nobody really knows how this works. It's like the blind leading the blind. Right. But that guy probably chose one of those building codes. He's grateful. And all these people mean well. He chooses one of them, uses it, sends it to the insurance company. You never hear anything else about it. Why? Because it worked. Why? Because the insurance adjusters don't know jack about building codes. Neither do their superiors. So that building code with all the documentation, it's the wrong building code, but it worked because it looked good enough to them. Why? Because they need documentation.
Right.
Right.
They just need something to put in the file.
They need something in the file. And so I don't advocate that at all. I mean, in fact, if you're doing that like those guys are doing, you're going to get caught because eventually you're going to run into the rare adjuster who actually understands the building. And they're going to be like, why are you using commercial codes for residential codes or something like that, right? But that's what you have to really learn them. That way you're not caught flat-footed in that scenario. But that little exercise should show everyone that this stuff works most of the time if you have the documentation, right? You got to have the proper documentation, which you can get if you know about building codes, but also from the inspection, right? If you do the inspection the right way. One of the other reasons why these adjuster estimates are missing line items is because they do horrible inspections. They do quick little walkthroughs. They don't go inside a lot of times, unless they know of damage that's been reported from the inside. They never get into attics. They never get up into the attic to check the underside of the roof.
Space decking and all that
They
stuff.
never do that. They never, unless you take them up there with you, they're never going to go up there and do that. But the problem is that a lot of most contractors are just as bad, if not worse.
Yeah.
And so I really do view the inspection as your opportunity to, if the best way to win approval for any line item is through evidence, documentation, and proof, the best way to obtain that evidence and documentation and proof is at the inspection. I believe every single job site is like a crime scene that must be investigated, right?
Yeah.
Like full-on CSI technician style. The whole property has to be dusted for prints. Like that's the mindset, that you go in with, because you've got to obtain the proof to win the approval of those line items.
Yeah, that's awesome. I've started looking at it like that too. Like
I can tell. I can tell. I've seen your photos, man.
Yeah.
That fire damage job.
Yeah.
Over 1,300 photos that you had in there. I was like, I told my wife, I was like, this is like a man after my own heart, right here. You've been to my events.
Yeah. So I got a kind of a question that just came up. It's just not on here, but a battle we're all fighting is O&P, overhead and profit.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now the insurance is saying, oh, it's not complex enough. It's not this. And honestly, we don't have a lot of time to keep battling them on this. But I just wondered, is that just dead to us in the roofing industry as far as getting overhead and profit on a roof? Or is there a way around that?
Yeah, well, first little context on that. I come from the old school. Like when I first got started out, it used to be they paid overhead and profit, which is 10 and 10, so it's 20% above and beyond on the estimate. They would do that anytime you had 3 trades or more, right? So roofing, gutters, fence, for example, if that was in the estimate, that's considered 3 trades. That would just kick in the 10 and 10 overhead and profit. Usually that would already be on the estimate, and if it wasn't, you asked for it, and they would just count up the trades, and if it was there, they gave you the 20%, right?
Yeah.
And so that, it was just, you didn't have to worry about it as much. It was just this threshold that everybody knew where you crossed it, that kicked in the 10 and 10. But unfortunately, that was not any sort of a law or a rule. That was not like a policy thing or anything. It was just a standard, an unwritten standard that everyone followed. And then somewhere, I believe, in around 2010, if I can remember right, I remember working on a job that had tons of trades on it. And I'm on the phone talking to this lady adjuster from State Farm, and I'm asking her for overhead and profit, and she says, this job doesn't warrant overhead and profit. And I was like, what are you talking about? There's 7 trades on here. And she goes, that doesn't matter at all. And I was like, are you like a new adjuster? Like, that was funny to me,
Yeah.
And she goes, no, I'm not a new adjuster, but I can just tell you that's not warranted. And I go, what do you have to do to get overhead and profit? And she goes, well, it must reach a level of complexity and or coordination that's required of a contractor. And I go, what? And she goes, it must reach a level of complexity and or coordination that's required of a contractor.
Yeah.
Well, what in the world is that, right? And so if that's what it is, what does that mean, and where is the threshold that we cross?
That's what I've asked them. They can't
when
tell
we
you.
get they can't tell you. And some of them will try to say, well, it's you can basically do all this stuff at the same time. You know, the trades don't overlap onto another, and you're not really using any subcontractors and, you know, various other things. And so none of that should really be a factor, but they came up with their own thing.
Yeah.
And I like to envision this where there was like a smoky room with some State Farm executives in some smoky room having cocktails one night, right? Happy hour. And they're like, you know, why is it that we pay overhead and profit? Some guy says. And it's like, what do you mean? He's like, well, you know, we pay overhead and profit when there's 3 trades or more. Why do we do that? Well, that's the way things are done. What do you mean? That's what, yeah, but who said? Right. Well, that's just the standard in the industry. Exactly. But is it in the policy? You know, I could see this. And they're like, why don't we just move the goalposts? And they just said, we're no longer going to pay overhead and profit unless it reaches like they came up with this thing. And they did that, and it worked. And sooner or later, all the other insurance companies just fell right in line. Like, it was an unwritten rule that everybody followed. And they changed the unwritten rule, and nobody pushed back, man. This is what really kills me. And so, like, you know, policies do have something in it probably about overhead and profit that, but
we can get it here and there, but on a roof, usually not. And
they like to take it out of the roof. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I've learned to, again, it's back to that. Let's speak their language. Let's go with the flow of traffic, right? Now, instead of trying to prove how many trades there are, what do we have to do? We have to prove complexity and prove coordination. How, right? How do you do that? And so I think with the coordination, it's a little easier. We have to be able to show like redacted subcontractor invoices, not showing how much we paid them,
Yeah.
right? That would handle the coordination aspect of it. But the complexity, we have to document every little thing that happens. Like, we have to bury them with documentation with every little thing that happens on that job, man, to convince them that it's complex. Because there is no rule, that means there's no rules for us either, right? So, like, if you use a CRM for entering everything in, then most CRMs, you can export all of the activity, right? So that every little thing that got entered into that job can be exported like in a log sheet of some sort. And if somebody doesn't have that, then I would and maybe you do, but this will help you think of it better. What if you had a log book, right? That everything on every job was tracked down to the most minute detail.
Show me that's not complex.
Right. Like nothing's off limits. Like Tuesday, 11:42 a.m., Jimmy left the job site to go get another stick of drip edge. I mean, nothing is too minute. You know, everything goes in this log. And so because I think it all comes down to storytelling, true storytelling. Whereas if you and I go somewhere and go to a football game or something, we come back, we had the exact same experience, but maybe I am way more descriptive about, because I like to talk. You can tell I like to talk, right? But once I get going, you know, and I'm telling all these details, and you're just kind of like, yeah, you know, and you give me your version or to someone else, and it's the same experience, but you don't have to go into so many dang words, you know.
Right, you tell a better story.
It's just more, you have to paint the picture better. Yeah, I think as a supplementer, when contractors used to tell me about their job and I'm supposed to write the estimate for them, you know, I'm trying to make the case for the insurance adjuster, maybe about the overhead and profit. Sometimes when I'm hearing the story, it's so simple that the way they're telling me with just lack of facts, and I'm like, I don't really hear any coordination or complexity to it. So I'm kind of like the adjuster. I'm like, I don't see it, right? Or other people, they're so over the top on the stuff that they're giving me and the pictures and everything that they have on this job and invoices and material receipts and all these things. I'm like, wow, this job is complex, right? And I'm convinced easily this job should have overhead and profit. So I think we have to kind of put ourselves in the mindset of that adjuster.
But it makes you want to pick your battles too.
Well, sure.
On what you're going over, you know.
Yeah, man. Yes. Yeah. When I was doing the supplementing, somebody would get mad at me maybe because I only got them $75,000 extra money. Right? They hired me to go get more money from the insurance company, and
you didn't get enough.
I didn't get enough because I didn't get the overhead and profit approved on the roof. but I got them $75,000 in additional money that they didn't have, right? That customer is fired, right? Like that, I'm not working under that. And so I use that analogy to say that sometimes we let our ego and a little bit of greed get in the way where we're like, they shouldn't get away with this, right? And it's like a pride thing. And sometimes we have to just let them go. Sometimes we get to a certain point.
Well, you don't, like we talked about that, the cancerous
Yeah.
stuff. You
Yes.
don't want to let it take over. Just
Yes.
move along.
I think you can, if you set a better expectation for yourself as a contractor to never anticipate being undefeated, right? You can't be undefeated, meaning you can't get them to approve every line item on your estimate 100% of the time. In fact, you're never going to come close to that, no matter how good you are. You can never be undefeated. If I put forward my best fight, and if they actually approve every line item on the estimate, then I'm questioning myself like, ooh, I made a mistake somewhere. What did I leave off the table? Or, like something's missing.
I want some pushback.
Yeah, because it just hardly ever happens. And so I'm questioning myself. I should have went higher, like I'm missing something. But that's just to show you that it doesn't happen. And so you should stop trying to make it happen. That's just setting yourself up for failure, right? So a better expectation is, let's not go after an undefeated record. Instead, let's try to go after a higher winning percentage, right? Well,
if you win, that's what matters.
Yeah. If you're looking at all your jobs that you have, month after month, and you're going from that initial estimate that they offered up, basically, right? And you're getting them to approve at the end of the day a certain percentage higher. I think that's what you want to focus on.
You can
right?
be profitable. You're in a win-win.
Yeah, absolutely. Which, you should not be. If you're doing this game even halfway right, you should be profitable. That's the beauty of insurance restoration too, is that, you should be at least a 50% profit margin on most of these jobs, most jobs. And if you're doing fire and water and other things and other parts of the claim, it should be even higher than that, So if you're not doing that, something's wrong. If you're just at a standard traditional, 15% or even 30%, you should be much higher. You should, at least a third. You should be at least at a 33% profit margin in these jobs. But we tend to wait a little longer. We have to go through more steps, but that's the payoff.
Yeah, well, that's the trouble. Last time I checked, and you might have some better stats than me, but the average insurance claim was, I think, like 5 months when I dug into it, which is, and I could be wrong at this. This is a couple years back, but if you think about that, who the heck can carry a claim that long?
Yeah,
we try to aim for like 2 to 3, but
sure,
that's still a long time.
I think that's really why I'm doing what I do at the end of the day. One of the many reasons, right, is it's trying to shorten that time frame. I think that, so there are other methods that contractors like to use, which is, in our industry, we have public adjusters, we have appraisals, we have attorneys, right? There are other methods to fight the insurance companies with, and whenever someone asks me, hey, I have this job, here's the details on it, do you think I should send this out to an attorney, have my customer hire an attorney, or have my customer hire a public? The key thing there is that for you to do that as a contractor, you can't do it.
Right.
Your customer has to do it anyway. So it's not like you can go hire an attorney on behalf of your customer or
They
a
have
public.
to do it.
They have to do it. And so we have a lot of attorneys and public adjusters that are trying to get good relationships with contractors because they know that they're at that pivotal place
Where they can push it.
where they can refer it out, right? But they can't do it themselves. And so that's, one of the things if I were to do that and then say I referred it out and my customer decided to hire an attorney or a public adjuster, if I want to call up the insurance company a month later and check up on the progress, they're going to tell me to pound sand. They're not going to give me any information, and they're going to refer me back to that public adjuster or that attorney. And that's a problem for me because one of the things I like to do is to call the insurance company at any time and find out what's going on, right? And have a say and have a part in that communication. So that's a problem for me. Public adjusters, attorneys, they're going to control the funds, but more of a problem than any of these things. Because if it worked, then great. But it's the second that an attorney gets involved or an appraisal's invoked or a PA sends a letter to the insurance company, they go into even more of a defensive mode, more of a defensive posture. It's always delay, deny, defend. But if they get a letter from a PA, right, and then
Now they know their goal.
That's right. I mean, maybe that state where that's at, maybe now the insurance company is on a clock where by state law they have to respond within so many days or whatever. They're going to wait to that last day to do it. It's just going to go into more of a delay overdrive. I mean, I used to ask the question. I stopped doing it after so many years at my events was, how many people here do appraisals, right? And then I would go around and ask, what's the average time frame? And I would let everybody answer. And what I could see around the country is an average of about 8 to 12 months that it takes, right? And some of them will say 2 years, 3 years, and stuff like that. Litigation's even longer. What's that like for the customer?
And what happens if your home's exposed to the elements or it's in
Yes,
despair?
yes.
Or you're displaced?
Yes. I had a guy in Oklahoma City one time tell me, I don't care. I don't care how long it takes, he said. Because on average, I'm getting these insurance companies to increase that number by 900%. I said, okay, great, but how long does it take you? Okay, because look, let's lay it out like this. Let's say that you're a deck contractor. You build decks for a living, right? That's what you do. And let's say you work for a builder and you build every week one deck for a builder. And it's the same deck, like the same specs, same exact size. It's probably not likely, but let's just go with it, right? And the specs, same size, so it costs you the same. You buy the materials, the same exact materials. You use some subs. It costs you the same in your labor. But let's say every time you complete one of these decks, you make $5,000 in profit. And you're doing one of these every single week, right? And so, if you ask me how much I make, I'm doing this, then I'd say I make $5,000 a week, and this is how. But you're smarter than me, so you say, yeah, but what happens like when it rains and it takes like 2 weeks maybe, well then I'm like, oh, I guess I don't make $5,000 a week anymore. I make $2,500 a week because it took 2 weeks, right? So that's what we've got to start thinking about.
You're out of production.
That's right. I mean, our profit, how long does it take us to get to the profit? Like how much time does it take to work on this job for it to be done, And so if we are dragging this job out for 9 months, but it's getting us 900%, it doesn't matter, man. Like, so if that deck, the profit takes 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 4 weeks, we're not making $5,000 a week anymore.
It's taking up all your time,
Did
you really make that?
Take that times a job that's 10 times the size, right? Or times 10 jobs, like you have 10 times the amount of jobs. We've got a major problem in our company, right? Mm-hmm. If that's what we're doing. So I think that you have to be, just like you have to be aggressive and relentless about getting the money off the street, you have to be aggressive about the time that it takes, right? So you can never, when it's in the hands of the adjuster and you're waiting on them to call you back, don't wait on them to call you back, right? Because it's going to be in a pile of stuff. And
make it relevant.
Right, and your stuff's down in that pile. But if you call them, they'll get it out of the pile and put it on the top. That's how most people are in most industries. You cannot just say, okay, I've done my work. I've sent them my supplemental packet, and they'll get back with me eventually. They might, and most of them probably will. But if you're going on their time, you're losing so much time. You have to be relentless. Yeah. You have to play offense instead of defense, just waiting for them to come to you all the time.
Yeah. So we talked a little bit about where we're going next is AI. What's your opinion on where we're headed in this industry?
It's going to be crazy.
Yeah.
I wish I could see it all, and to visualize it all so that I could give you a better answer. But, I have no idea, on a lot of fronts. I don't know how exactly I only know certain aspects of it, right? Like it's going to cost a lot of people their jobs.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen I don't know. Have you seen these robots that are installing shingles?
I seen a video.
Have you seen some of that
I
stuff?
seen it, and I don't know.
Yeah, I think we're far way off from stuff like that. But I mean,
I did. You know,
it's
right
eye-opening.
before I seen it, I said, "Oh, no one's ever taken a roofer's job." You know,
Yeah.
hey, robot ain't doing that. Then I stumble across the video of it being installed. I'm like,
oh, yeah, that's a little jolting right there. But I think, where we are is AI is already helping both sides. Like it's helping contractors and insurance companies in things like the measurements
Yeah.
and things like
satellite. And
yeah,
all that, yeah.
those kind of things, and things like photography, like recognizing certain things from photos. If you just think of like some of the apps where you visualize what's on the house, and
Cover.
there are some things that are being done that I know about that are just game changing. And so I already know about some services who are helping with like responding to adjusters, like with some of the communication. Like you think about some of the AI chatbots that are out there and talk to people and have conversations with people. Well, there are programs that help you do that, like give you some of the thought out, like identify some of the things in the policy, maybe identify other correspondence that's already been done from the insurance company, and then give advice on what to say to them, basically, right? So I see a lot of that being done that I think is going to move, mountains. Just realizing, though, that the insurance company, any technology that's available like that, the insurance company is going to be using it too. In fact, expect them to be using it first, expect them to be using more of it, and expect them to own all of it.
No, they're going to.
That would be the end result, right? Is to gobble it all up, to own it, to control it. There's also AI estimating that's being done, and I don't know everything, but I can't, there's actually only so much that I can and can't talk about, but because of not knowing everything, right? But I think I've heard that there are some of the estimating services that are being provided that are actually not really there yet, but it just looks like they are, whereas maybe some are. I don't know. I think there's more that's going to be coming out with that. However, me, myself personally, using AI it took me a while to get it going, much like a lot of people were with the internet. The .com people resisted, or social media. Like, I'm not getting on Facebook, then eventually you get on Facebook. And I think I was sort of resisting, just stubborn about it with the AI. And then I finally got on ChatGPT, started actually embracing it,
Oh, yeah.
But I am using it myself to where on a job like the job that you brought me in on, one of the common things I'm going to do is load in the policy or the declaration and ask, ChatGPT to analyze it and to point out certain things. That saves me time, but we have to be cautious because
You got to vet it.
we have to vet it, because I think we all know that there are many mistakes.
Yeah.
That's one thing I don't like,
I read something the other day. ChatGPT will hallucinate.
Hallucinations,
Give you
yeah.
an answer.
Yeah.
And I use it every single day, but I do try to vet it.
So AI is revolutionary. It's going to change so many different things. I don't know what all it's going to change. I don't know enough to know about it, but I know it's crazy. They have the robot that installs roofs that they're talking about, which I don't know when that'll actually be ready, but they say that there are many changes that are going to be coming. I just think that whatever technology that is being used for AI, expect the insurance companies to be using it too.
Oh yeah, I have a vision where we got one, they got one, and it's just battling.
They're talking back and forth to each other.
And it gets to where it's going to exhaust each other, and it's never going to get anywhere.
Yeah.
That's my fear.
So AI, there's flaws, there's challenges, the hallucinations, like you said. But there's, so there are companies that are offering the services on how to communicate to adjusters that'll auto write responses and rebuttals. And so I see that being helpful. And if you use those, great. But I just realizing the insurance companies are going to use it too. There are companies that are providing estimating services that are saying that it's AI estimating generated. I have been learning a lot about that. I've been told that most of those companies don't actually do it completely with AI yet. I know of one company that I understand does. And so I think it's really, there's a lot that's going to happen. But I do recommend everyone using it for themselves.
As a tool.
As a tool, not as a solution, the end-all solution. Don't take its word for it. But I do use ChatGPT to analyze policies, to analyze estimates, to look for things quickly that I'm looking for quickly. But I'm never just going to take its word for it. And I'm gonna vet it on my own because who trains out there on this topic like I do? And I'm one of the trainers. So who's training the Chat GPT? Maybe I think we need to play a role in teaching it the information.
And I think we will eventually.
Yeah.
It's not we, you, or guys
Yeah.
like you.
But yeah, it's a big, AI is big.
Yeah.
It's going to be huge.
I think so. I'm looking forward to it. It is a little bit scary.
Yeah. Definitely.
Technology. It's like the internet, coming again.
Yeah, you and I lived through that period, and it was scary, but we lived through it,
So, I got one last question, and this is for our clients. We see a lot of good policies, a lot of bad policies, a lot of ACV versus RCV,
Mm-hmm.
and I got to ask you, on your house. If you were, or your daughter's buying a house and she says, Dad, I don't know what policy to get.
Yeah.
How are you going to protect her? And what advice would you give anyone?
Such a great question. Well, I would say, and that this matters a great deal, but first and foremost, you do need to have a replacement cost value policy and versus an actual cash value. If you have a mortgage, you're not going to be able to get a policy unless it's replacement cost value. So that's a good thing. But that just means that everything is going to be paid according to what the prices are at the time of repair, not what the cost was when you first got the roof, for example, but at the time of the new roof. So not like an auto policy where they just pay you based on the depreciated value. So that's definitely a crucial fact there. But also they need to have ordinance and law coverage. Also, that's usually going to be required by a mortgage, but this is for people that don't have a mortgage. And these things, a lot of these things are optional, and I see them making mistakes to go with the cheaper policy, not understanding, or the cheapest coverage, not understanding how important and critical these things are when you have to actually use them, right? But ordinance and law, making sure that that's included, and typically, anywhere between 5 and 10% should be the amount for ordinance and law. That should be available above and beyond the policy limits. Usually you see like an HO3C policy or DP3 policies. These are like your typical State Farms, USAA, where ordinance and law is usually included. And most of your standard coverage is included. But I would, if there's an option of how much and things like contents, I would go for the higher, and things like USAA, for example, has this plan called the Home Protector Plan, where it's like an additional coverage. It's a package that you can opt to buy. And if you don't know what that is, then you would probably choose not to because it's going to cost you more. But I'm working on this job right now where a customer had her home completely destroyed by fire, and the insurance company is going to max out that policy, but she's going to be able to get an additional 25% paid for the Home Protector Plan because she paid more. Now, usually if you have to total out your house by a fire or something like that, and you added up the entire estimate piece by piece, it's going to far exceed what your policy limits actually are. And so having little things like that can make up for that. State Farm has a version of a plan that covers additional cost of construction. And so these are considered additional coverages, but I would be weary of things like policies that require you to enter into a right to repair contract, which means that they can choose the contractors for you. A lot of insurance companies are starting to invoke this. That's going to be a lot harder for them to implement than to having they have the option of doing it, right? So I would refrain from getting into those types of policies. You need to be watching out for policies that say things like we're only going to pay up to a certain amount to match for products that are discontinued, that they don't make anymore. And so I would not enter in any kind of exclusions like that. Maybe you have to pay more to get rid of that part. That's what I would do. So hopefully that answers that question.
Yeah. One thing I'm seeing or hearing
Just
about.
stay away from. No, I can't say that. I don't want to get you sued.
No, the one thing I'm seeing
Me
is
sued.
yeah, either of us. One thing I'm seeing them do is, oh hey, you're up for renewal. Sign this,
Yes.
and now it gets them into a roof schedule.
Yes. Ooh, good one. Yes. Thank you. I'm glad you brought that up. That's like negligence of me not to bring up.
Yeah.
RPS, roof payment schedule, is what that's called, where they can essentially deduct out the entire cost of your roof if your roof was destroyed from the estimate. And that's because the roof has reached a certain age, right? So a lot of times they're sending out letters that say, replace your roof or we're dropping you. Right? They'll do that, or they'll just auto renew them into that type of thing where they don't even know what it is. They're notified, but they don't really understand it. Refrain from entering into any kind of a policy or renewal that has that RPS, roof payment schedule, snuck into it. Everybody needs to check their renewal declarations when they come up. Do not automatically just renew it, because chances
Don't
are,
just sign.
things have been changed since the last time the policy renewed. So good on you for bringing that up. I asked people at some of my events, like, have you heard of it? And some people haven't. In some areas, everybody's heard of it. I have to tell people, if you've never heard of it, it's coming to a neighborhood near you.
Yeah, you got to be careful.
Yeah.
I know, like one house we just did, they had it and they had just signed some paperwork right before the storm, and now they had instead of getting it fully covered, they had to pay like $15,000
because they deducted out
and
all
it
or
saved
most
them
of the roof.
$300. That's all they saved.
Jeez, man.
And it cost them a lot. So,
That is a hard one to take. Yeah.
So I got a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're teamed up with Certainty. How did that come about?
Oh, yeah. Good question, man. Certainty has been sponsoring all of my events. They sponsor my content, and I'm also a trainer for them. So it's a 2-part agreement, and entering into my 3rd agreement with them right now. So it's an amazing relationship that I'm so grateful for, so proud of, because Certainty to me is the best. Like, I look at them as the best, and not just in roofing, but they're in everything. But they're a huge company owned by Saint-Gobain in France, actually, that have been in business over 400 years. They're huge. And I look at like them as the premium grade, like the designer grade. It's just like they have things that other manufacturers don't have. And so when you look at them, I think they look like the best. And so I want to be attached and associated with the best. I just put Certainty on my home, the Landmark Pro. So I'm not just saying, about talking about something I wouldn't believe in, or that I believe in that I wouldn't use for myself. But more than any of that, something I didn't anticipate was the actual people at Certainty. The actual people.
They're all amazing.
They're just, I watched your first episode with Bob Eaton.
Which is crazy because we
Over
didn't
the
plan
top.
this. We didn't plan this
Right?
to be
Yeah.
the Certainty on the 2nd episode, but it's wild how things
Crazy.
align. And,
Yeah. I walked into your shop, man, and I see Certainty, product and the signs, and I was proud of that. Like, I go into too many of my clients, I go into too many of their operations, and they talk about Certainty, and then I see other brands in there, But yeah, I've been to their headquarters a few times, and I've gotten to know many people in their company. One of my best friends is Tim Eldridge, on the national level. If it wasn't for Tim, I wouldn't probably be with Certainty. So he's instrumental in getting me with them, to answer that. But I've met so many people who have been there for 20, 30 years, and more than that.
And
I think
speaks volumes.
Bob's been there over 20 years.
Oh, yeah. I think he's been there. I can't remember what he said. I think 20 or 30 years.
Yeah. So he's been there forever. And just, you see that, and it's like, I honestly have been thinking of Certainteed as something that my daughter, who's 16, needs to be looking at. And I was asking my wife, do you think that Certainty would be a place where Leah might want to work one day? You know what I mean? Like I thought of that, like, because I would be proud of that as being her job, right? Like I love Certainty, love them to death, but they offer incredible backing and support to their customers, as you know. They stand behind their product. If anything ever goes wrong, they make it right. I love hearing stories like that you were telling me about the other day with that. But also, they offer education and training to make
their back us all the time.
They do. And that's why I do what I do. They pay me to train customers or contractors all over the country at training events. They want to arm them with better information so that they're more successful.
They invest in their clients.
100%.
But you don't see that ever.
Yeah. I mean, and you know, it's so neck and neck with really shingles. And one thing Tim likes to say, it's all just asphalt and granules at the end of the day, you know, and there's only so much they can make. I think they're all at their capacity. And so
it's wild. That's what I've heard is it's just plants are going nuts.
Yeah. And so they have to have more. They have to have something that separates them from the next, manufacturer. Absolutely. And I'm not here to criticize any of the other ones because I haven't worked in the capacity I'm working with Certainty for any of the others. So I couldn't tell you how great, they are. All I know is Certainty, but I do know the product. I think it definitely stands apart from the others.
Before I ever even sold them, that's what's on my house. It was actually just a landmark, and it's still there. We're going to replace my roof here soon, and I'm going to put a pro on it, and I'm going to buy the 50-year warranty.
Yeah.
And the reason is because they stand behind it.
They actually stand behind it.
It's not smoke and mirrors.
Which you've actually had to see, right? You've had to actually see, which is good. Yeah. I think that, because like Tim always says, like, we're not perfect. There's no manufacturer that's perfect. There are going to be flaws. Like, and you never know. Like, there are some of them that might come out of the machine a little different way. There might be some defects, and that happens with all the suppliers. But
I say that about ProBid the same way.
Yeah.
It's not, we mess up. We're human. We make mistakes. But it's the contractor that stands behind the mistake. Same with Certainty. They stand behind the mistake, and that's what separates people.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
not the good times, it's the bad times. What are we going to do to get through the bad times?
100%. 100%. So, yeah, I'm super grateful for the relationship I have with them. I hope it lasts forever. I hope they have room in their budget to include me. Yeah. Because I love working with them. I have so much fun.
Well, I think it's awesome that you guys are partnered together.
Yeah.
We didn't align because of that, but
sure,
I'm sure we would have at some point.
Yeah, absolutely. I know it's amazing. I get here and I find out that you were at the event, you've got a Certainty relationship, you're a select, right, with certain select contractors. That's a big deal. So I know that they love you.
Yeah. No, they're there. I told Bob it's not a lie. Like, they've supported me more than any other company that we deal with.
It's awesome.
So you can't beat it. I mean, the relationship speaks volumes.
Yeah, it's awesome.
So, you got anything else you want to touch on?
No, I think he's probably needing you to. No, I'm just kidding.
All right. Well, I hope all you guys got some value out of this. I know I did. And this has been a wild week. We didn't have this planned at all. This is kind of spur of the moment. We're shooting on a Sunday, and I'm very thankful for Chad to be here.
Thanks for having me, man.
I genuinely appreciate your time.
Total pleasure. Thanks for offering.
Thank you. And I got to tell you guys, if you're a contractor, you got to check him out. You got to go to one of his events. I guarantee you, without a doubt, you will get some value out of it. And if you have a big enough project where you want to pay him to consult with it, I think you'll, I'll tell you later how good he does. But I anticipate he's going to move the needle for us quite a bit. So,
thepractitioner.com. Thepractitioner.com.
Yep. Yep. So, like I said, thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you, Chad. I appreciate
Pleasure,
you.
Brother.
And
thank you.
I look forward to
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, look forward to the relationship.
Likewise, brother.
We'll talk to you guys soon. Thanks for tuning in to Conder Conversations.